Hey, welcome back, my amazing student. So on this lecture, we're gonna start working on the filters here. Now we are able to delete expenses. We were able to display them. We're able to do a couple different things already. We're almost getting there to where we have to deal with the charts. Now this area here, I'm not gonna tell you something that is not. It is a little bit difficult for beginners, but we'll get through this, all right? So trust me, we'll, at the end of this video or the next videos, you will understand how this actually works. And guys, again, if you take it apart line by line, you will be able to find out, all right? And I'm not gonna explain it to you. I'm going to explain it to you as best as possible. Anyway, so the first thing is, when we're dealing with this filters here, is that you have to understand when we submit, when we're doing queries here that has to do with filters, most of the time it's going to be as get request here on top. If you go to Google real quick and you type anything on Google and you say cars, you can see that search query on top, right? So this is exactly what we're going to be doing, all right? We're going to be using a little bit different technologies, but it's basically the same thing, right? So just a little bit different, right? Because they're going to be using a lot of JavaScript. They use a lot of JavaScript behind the scenes. We're going to be using Python, all right? So let's go and play around with this. So let's go into the app here. And one thing that I want to do, I'm going to do this right above the index right here. I'm going to create a helper function because I want to parse the dates that are going to come in from this form here. We're going to have this form that is going to send query strings as strings, right? It's gonna send query strings into the backend, and we need to parse those as objects, all right? So I'm gonna create this function here, this helper function. I'm gonna name it parse date, because that's what we're gonna be doing right now, and none, right? And this, of course, is going to be a string, just as that, all right? Boom. All right, so yeah. So I'm just hinting here. I'm just saying, hey, listen, whatever is gonna come in is gonna be a string, for those of you that don't know that. So I'm gonna say if not S, right? If it's not there, just return none. Simple as that. And then I'm gonna put this in a try. I'm gonna say return, and this is where we're gonna do the magic. I'm gonna grab the date time, and I'm gonna use this function called strp. And don't confuse that with the strf, all right? This is to parse data, that's why it has the P, and the F is for strings to format, all right? So one we use in the template, you've seen me using this before in here, right? So we're formatting strings here, right? We're grabbing those objects and we are creating strings with it. In here, we are grabbing the strings and creating objects with the P. Simple as that, all right? So strp time, and we're gonna pass in what we get, the string, and we're gonna format, this is the format here that it has. And the D, right? Actually, not dollar symbol, the percentage symbol. All right. That should be it for that. And let's just make sure that we have this date at the end, so that way everything works out good. Let's do the except here, so we get a value error exception. We can handle that and return, so our application doesn't break, and return none. Simple as that. Boom. So now that we have this helper function, we can start playing around with this. So I'm going to do this right here on index, because this is the main route for us in our application. And I'm going to do, this is the str string that's going to come in. And let me go ahead and get the request arguments. That's what it's called. And we'll get whatever comes in. That get request is going to be called start. And we're going to do that from the form, by the way. All right. Let me wrap this around so that we can do something like this, or none, and then we can do strip here at the end. Boom. All right, let's do the same thing for the end. We're gonna, remember, this is coming from the form, all right? We're gonna send this in later. And we have end right here. Perfect. So for those of you that are a little confused about this, for those of you that are beginners, we could write this differently, all right, if I wanted to. So I'm going to show you real quick. So basically what we're doing is we're grouping and we're making sure that result, we apply strip to the result. If we do it without grouping, we'll do something like this, right? And we can say, let's request start. I'll put it right here. And we can say something like this, right? And then we'll grab this here, this guy. Let me just put it right here. And we'll say str, and we'll apply strip to it, just like that, right? So it would be, this is how we can do it without, with in one line, and this is in 2 lines, all right? So basically that's what we're doing in here when we're doing the parentheses, all right? I hope that you guys appreciate the explanation there. I'm not going to always be doing that. This is just for beginners. All right, so we first parse the date, read the parameters here, all right? And now we're gonna do some parsing. So you can write comments if you want. You can put a little comment here. You can say, this is reading the params. And this is good for those of you that are beginners to actually do. Query strings. And here we are gonna be parsing, all right? All right. Anyway, I'm not gonna be writing comments because it just takes time. All right, so let's call this start date and let's parse. So I'm gonna use my function parse date or none, and I'm gonna parse the string. And the end date, we're also gonna be using that and parse in the end string as well. Now we have the objects here. Perfect. Out of the strings, we have the objects because we have this helper function, which is really good stuff. All right. So what I could do here, I could say if the start date and the end date, all right? And let me just say, hold on. If start date and end date is less than start date, then I want to flash, and I'm gonna say, hey, listen, end date cannot be before start date. I did that in my head. And then we're gonna pass in some error here, right? And I'm gonna grab start date and the end date, and I'm gonna set this to none, right? Because I'm gonna use this. And I'm gonna grab the start date, start string, and the end, and apply this empty here. All right? Super, super cool. All right, maybe we'll take this. Let me see how many minutes we are into this. 8 minutes. We're almost done, all right? There's only 8 minutes into it. But anyway, here, for those of you that did not start, we just basically did not understand. We're just basically resetting the start date and the end date to none because they, of course, they are objects, right? And we're resetting here the strings to empty, right? Or should I say to empty strings there? So I'm gonna create a variable here called Q to represent my query, my expense query here. Just because I wanna make this a little smaller here. And we're gonna say if the start date is available, we're gonna construct this query here. So let's go ahead and say, what I wanna do is I wanna filter. I want to do some filtering here first. So I want to say if the expense date is greater than or equal than the start date, then I want you to save that query here. Okay? Let's do another one. If the end date, all right, we're going to do one for the end date, one for the start date. The end date is just basically going to be the opposite. All right, so put this here. This would be the end date. And this here would be the opposite, of course. Instead of greater than, it's going to be less than or equal. All right? All right, perfect. As a matter of fact, this needs to be outside, all right? Don't put this inside this here. Move it. I'm doing that, Command Tab, and it moves the whole query out of this indentation here with the if statement. If you put it with the if statement, it's not gonna work, right? So we know that. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna change this whole thing, because that's what I got right here, into my new query that I'm creating depending on the start and the end date. So let's take all that out and put just the Q there. And that's it, right? So now when we go into our form and we submit any type of query, right? If we leave it the way it is, it won't do much. But when we go ahead and play around with this form here, the filtering, then is going to affect the query that is gonna go into the template, all right? So we're gonna send these values in there. We're gonna send them to where they need to go, all right? So after total, what I wanna do is I wanna send in the start string back in there so that I can use it in the value for the input, and you'll see that in a minute. And I also wanna send the end string so I can use it. All right. And yeah, let me see, that's, I also want to send in the date, the today actually, to the template. So I'm going to do that right here. I want to send today. I want to make sure that I format this correctly with this function, right? Should actually do this, like put this right here. This should have been done already. It should have been done before. And expense, so categories on top. And why this matters, I have OCD, guys, all right? I need to have things in a specific order in order for this to be good in my mind, all right? Anyway, yeah. So in the next lecture, we're gonna hook this in with our form, make it work. I'll see you guys in the next following lecture. Make sure you get this, all right, all this stuff. We can see that we have the total here. Okay. Make sure I got the little comma there, so that way the total, because I saw it grayed out there, and I knew something was up, so it was the little comma there. And I was looking for this stuff for a little bit. Anyway, guys, I'll see you guys on the next lecture. Take care.